So a little birdie tells me you're a very avid golfer.
I like golf because you compete against yourself.
Is that what Adobe Story is also all about?
You know, we were a category definer.
How are you sort of plugging the gaps there?
Yeah, B2C has been our core strength.
So give us a sense of what your customers are talking to you about and what's really changed.
Our customers have talked about digital transformation for a while.
There are some conversations which are interesting, but there are some that are super special and super close to my heart. Today I'm going to speak to a very amazing gent called Suresh Vittal. The reason he's special is not because he's a fellow Indian brother, but more importantly, we both have enjoyed being in the company of our ex-employer, and that was a great journey for you as well, Suresh. You know. Thank you for making time for Greyhound TV. I really appreciate that. So a little birdie tells me you're a very avid golfer.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. As you said, you know, we share a common fraternity with Forrester, and you know that's taught us both a lot.
That's right.
About the industry, and I am an avid golfer. You know, and I like golf because you compete against yourself and the course and the elements. Right, so every time you get out there on the course, it's not about the competitive spirit with everybody else, but you're kind of playing yourself, and you're marking yourself, you're benchmarking yourself against how you performed previously. Right?
Is that what Adobe Story is also all about?
Yeah. No, so it's interesting. You know, we were a category definers, right? If you think about digital marketing, it's essentially a category Adobe created, right? We recognized early that the ability to personalize and address an audience through digital channels is going to be game-changing for the business. It's going to be game-changing for the CMO. Because for the first time, you're able to now start to quantifiably measure how your marketing is performing.
That's right.
And we thought technology would be a great way to solve those problems that plagued marketing organizations for centuries.
But tell me, let's sort of talk about the Adobe story for a minute.
Yeah.
Adobe's always been this champion for the B2C category, wherein it's done fantastically well, where always has been the vendor of choice. But B2B has been the area which is sort of, there have been other players which have been prevalent. How are you sort of changing that market? How are you sort of plugging the gaps there?
Yeah, B2C has been our core strength. Some of the core principles of digital marketing apply in business to consumer. But what's also true is some of those very same principles of B2C, as you called it, right? How do you address a customer? How do you personalize their experiences? Equally applies to B2B, right? The digital customer journey for a business purchasing decision, 70% of that happens before they even talk to a sales rep.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
And so brands have this unique opportunity to have that conversation with the buyer in a very personalized, very targeted way. So how do you, in B2C we think about accounts, individuals. In B2B you think about accounts.
Right.
In B2C you think about personalizing that interaction, hundreds of decisions that you're making every second. In B2B you're thinking about complex customer journeys and account teams and buying teams with lots of different titles. Right. And so we think many of these same principles apply in both areas. And brands are no longer B2C or B2B, right? Brands very often are doing both.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, this morning I gave the example of Booking.com.
That's right.
It's an amazing B2C brand.
Yeah.
And probably the largest booking engine in the world.
That's right.
But we serve them in the B2B capacity as well.
Yeah, right? They have a huge front end with the dealers and distributors and travel agents and all of that, right? Tell me, CX is a topic which is very close to your heart.
Yes.
Since Forrester is actually. That's also changed. The narratives changed. The requirements have changed. Put this in context for me. Until very recently, it was all about or the startups are forcing us to change. But in the last 12 months, if you were to talk about the key sort of observations that you've had with your global customers, what's really driving the CX agenda? And more importantly, is it only about the customer, or is it also about, let's say, your internal customers, your internal stakeholders, which is your employees, your partners, your vendors? So give us a sense of what your customers are talking to you about and what's really changed in the last 12 months.
Yeah, that's a great question. So our customers have talked about digital transformation for a while, right? And when they've talked about digital transformation, it's often been about operating model change.
That's right.
Or business model change.
That's right.
The last 12 months, our customers have started talking about this need that in digital transformation, the need for them to build a deep personal connection with the end consumer.
So the customer's customer.
The customer's customer,
Right.
exactly.
Okay.
And so it doesn't matter if you're selling cement or if you're selling complex eye care products or you're selling toothpaste,
Right.
right? Procter & Gamble CEO is famous for saying he wants to build a one-to-one relationship with 6 billion people in the world.
Yeah. That's quite a statement, by the way.
Yeah,
Very
that is
powerful, right?
Very powerful.
Yeah.
But that muscle of building one-to-one customer relation, it's what every brand we talk to kind of describes as their big pain point. And why do they have to do this? Because they want to personalize that engagement that they have. And that's what, because consumers no longer buy products.
Right.
Right? They buy the experience wrapped around the products that these brands sell.
That's right.
And increasingly, experiences are how you're going to differentiate yourself. Right? The experience during the buying process, but then the experience you offer them post-buying.
That's more important, actually.
Exactly.
You know, right. You know, tell me one thing. This really interests me because we speak about personalization, but when I speak to boards, when I speak to brands, they still struggle with personalization at scale.
Yeah.
Let's talk about countries like China. Let's talk about Brazil. Let's talk about India. Let's talk about Russia.
Yeah.
These are scale countries, right?
Yeah.
And brands sometimes are sort of going round and round in circles. They're making the same age-old mistakes that they've been making. So in your observation, okay, what are some of the old mistakes that you see in patterns that are continuing in the market, and how do you solve the personalization at scale problem?
Yeah, so the mistakes you see are often kind of the lack of the right organizational incentives, right, to support personalization. Ultimately, this isn't just a technology problem, right? This is, you have to change the culture, the ethos of the organization to be ready to experiment, to be ready to kind of lay out the wins on the table, right, as you go along the journey. It isn't a big bang, right? By the way, none of these digital transformation projects are.
That's right.
Right,
Yeah.
you kind of have to progressively work your way into it. I talked about this need for muscle memory around one-to-one customer relationships. That's personalization, right? You can't build that memory overnight, right? So the data expertise, the content expertise, the process expertise, these are things that brands won't build overnight, and they have to work at it, right? So some of the mistakes we see are around kind of trying to go too fast and not have clearly stated objectives and plans to go after that. Now, having said that, I think there are ways you can solve for this, right? Having the right data infrastructure in place, having the right content and the content velocity to support the personalization use case, having a culture, an ethos of experimentation, allowing team members to fail quickly, but recover, right? So that's cultural changes also that you have to kind of.
You mentioned content a few times. It really intrigues me because a lot of brands I consult with, while they get the importance of the content, but they almost always struggle from the content to the commerce story.
Yeah.
You know. So tell me from your experience of working with, let's say, some of the largest global customers, how are they solving this problem? And more importantly, from an Adobe standpoint, what are some of these products that you think are helping these brands have early wins in the game?
Yeah, so I think the commerce equation is really not just about the shopping cart anymore, right? I think it's increasingly about having commerce be part of that experience, right? We call it experience-based commerce, when you're able to wed great content with the data and insights about the customer, with commerce, right, and marketing. And you're able to bring these ingredients together. So commerce almost happens in the context of the experience. It's not just the reason why you're going. We kind of describe it as the buy button moving up in the customer journey, right? It's not the end of the interaction. It happens maybe sometimes in the beginning of the interaction, and then you continue to have those interactions post-purchase with the consumer.
Right.
So we think about the role of commerce and the role of content has changed pretty dramatically from being kind of isolated components to kind of tightly woven things that allow a brand to deliver these amazing experiences. And commerce almost happens in the context of that experience.
Right. From an Adobe standpoint, previously commerce has been sort of, I wouldn't say weak link. It's unfair on my part to say weak, but it's been a piece of the puzzle that Adobe hasn't really dealt with in the past, right? How are you solving that gap now?
Yeah. So, happy to report we've kind of been listening to the feedback from you and analysts like you, but also our customers, right? Who always thought about content and commerce as individual categories and capabilities. And we found that we could operate in a world where we kind of help the customer own the glass, such as it were, with amazing content capabilities. And as we saw the ability to kind of reframe the commerce dialogue to go more than simply a shopping cart or a payment gateway, or a product information system or an order management system, we kind of sprung at that opportunity. And last year we announced the acquisition of Magento, which is probably, I'd say, the largest open source commerce platform in the world, more than 300,000 plus developers, kind of building and extending commerce capabilities. So unparalleled IP, and really deep integration with our existing AEM, Adobe Experience Manager, and our content capabilities. And we think this can be game changing. The ability to bring rich behavioral data with content and bring the commerce capabilities of Magento and the developer ecosystem that can extend and innovate around us, right? So I guess we were waiting for the right opportunity.
These are great acquisitions, by the way, and I think the fact that they come with such a strong community that solves the problems by itself. It's a self-feeding community, which I think is super. Now, but talking about data, since you mentioned it a few times, when I do speak to brands and marketers, there's one consistent feedback is that we struggle with data. There are so many facets to it that we don't know how to tell the story internally. We're stuck with this weekly reports and these dumps that keep coming in and it make absolutely zero sense to us. How do you sort of think and believe marketers can do this better, sift through the data, deal with the data deluge, and come out with outcomes that really sort of, let's say, matter to the marketing organization or the services organization or the sales organization? How do you sort of do this?
Yeah, I think again, it doesn't happen overnight, right? You need to be able to democratize insights, right? Moving away from the BI type mindset, where you would open a ticket with an IT help desk, or you'd open a ticket with a BI analyst, and then you have to go away and wait for 3 to 6 weeks, and then you'd get the data dump, as you called it. Right? I don't think brands operate or can afford to operate in a digital world in that kind of a life cycle and that kind of time cycle, right? So increasingly, kind of you have to amp up the level of data IQ inside your organization, the quant skills inside your marketing organizations, right? And we see so many of our customers actually actively hiring for analysts and data scientists and business analysts to kind of help them solve for this. But then putting the right tooling in place, putting the right infrastructure in place, putting the right capabilities to kind of mine those insights yourself. And a couple of things I'd call out. One is Adobe Analytics, probably the kind of core system of intelligence for our customers. And increasingly as digital behavior becomes kind of the signal that helps you understand how an experience is being delivered, how a customer is interacting with your brand, we start to see that system of intelligence become even more prevalent across the enterprise. Right? So we find our users are kind of exploding, the number of users that we have on Adobe Analytics. And couple that with kind of rich audience sharing capabilities and audience management. I truly believe this ability to create an audience and then activate that audience in any channel that you have, that's going to be an enterprise muscle that every brand has to have as they try to have these deep personal relationships with customers. So I think these are kind of capabilities that every brand has to go seek out and build.
That's right, and these are differentiators in the long run anyway, right?
Exactly.
But speaking of data, what really sometimes, it worries me sometimes is that large brands are still sort of struggling sometimes with traditional BI problems. There's still, the reporting is very human, led, I would say, right? Sort of we are empowering very few business analysts with very expensive BI tools, which means that the ROI will never exist really, right? Of course, that's where the role of artificial intelligence comes in, because you have to sort of ensure it's automated, right? Is it really something, I know a lot of organizations and brands are talking about artificial intelligence and use of analytics for data. Do you think the motion's also happening on the ground from a POC point of view, or let's say from a real implementation point of view?
So, I think AI and ML are having a profound impact on marketing, on digital experiences, on customer experience management. I think for the first time, you have access to the data, right? This rich behavioral data, petabytes of this data, because the amount of behavioral data a brand can collect is unparalleled given any time in history.
That's right.
But then the ability to bring compute, and kind of the cloud has really helped here, is to kind of bring compute against all of that data. Where I think Adobe has a unique point of view is we aren't trying to use AI and ML to solve kind of a whole host of problems where we don't have domain expertise, right? Our AI and ML efforts have been focused in three primary domains. The domain of content, the domain of creativity, and experience delivery.
Right.
And we see a rapid increase in first, the IQ of organizations as they think about AI and ML, and then secondly, their willingness to experiment and to try new things, and to engage within, as you described it, POCs.
Yeah, right. Should I also, one of the feedback that comes from a lot of clients is that when they sort of approach this entire journey of adopting marketing technology, they sort of sometimes struggle. They have this kid in the candy store moment. There's so much happening, but when they try and integrate all of that together, it's a nightmare, it's expensive, it's time consuming and more. So one of my clients right now, it's a very large manufacturing company, has a big presence across Europe and Asia. Their problem statement is they're using multiple tools inside the company, and they have different points of measurement, they have different leaders, which means no CX campaign is standard. It's such a heterogeneous environment, and they're having almost a nightmare trying to make it all work together. Do you observe similar issues with other clients globally as well?
Yeah, well, integration's been a long-standing problem, which is partly why we've tried to help our customers manage the entire customer journey with best-in-breed capabilities that are tightly integrated. We're not kidding ourselves either. We're under no illusions. The enterprise landscape is extremely heterogeneous, right? So we expect that there will be lots of different technologies. We have to be open, we have to be extensible, but just as importantly, we have to support these brands in thinking about how they blueprint integration, right? What are the best practices they want to put in place? Who are the partners they should be working with?
Right.
What's the kind of APIs or documentation that they need to be able to drive this integration? You're right. You look at any of the analyst research in this category is exploding, right? When 5 years ago, there were probably 2,000 vendors. Now there's like 8,000.
Yeah, that's right.
And more seem to get funded every single day.
I don't know why though, but anyway, we'll see who falls into who ultimately, right?
Yeah. And I think so. The challenge of integration isn't going away, right? And so, as a vendor in this space, I think we have a responsibility to be open and extensible, and well documented, and share best practices. But I think as a consumer of this technology, IT organizations have. By the way, this is not a new problem for IT organizations. Of course,
this is an age-old problem. ERP, CRM,
exactly.
All sort of the waves of change have gone through.
That's right. For the marketing organization, this is somewhat new.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And I think leaning on their CIO, CTO is not a bad idea, and leaning on the partners who kind of help them through this journey is not a bad idea.
But this is interesting. You said Adobe has this entire integrated suite, but there's the flip side to that, which is the all-in. And sometimes marketers go really cold feet. They say, are all these products best of breed? There's a big question mark there. And their CEOs and boards have a pushback and say, if you're going all in with one single technology vendor, are we adding new risks to the system? Do you think it's a fair comment?
So do I think it's a fair comment? No, right? Why not?
Adobe, you're going to think that.
I know, exactly. Well, analysts like yourselves will kind of help the customers understand who's best of breed, who's not. Right. So I'll leave that in your expert hands.
Sure.
The way I think about this thing is, at some point the brand has to decide. Right. The good news is Adobe is both best of breed and integrated. Right. Our product strategy, the core of our product strategy, we wanted to solve both of those problems. Right. Now, being all in Adobe, I'd say that's not entirely true anyways, right? Given what we just talked about, heterogeneous environments, lots of different systems, homegrown applications, and so on. Second, you're operating in a SaaS world. And what does that mean? You are in a subscription model, right? The beauty of the subscription model is you're not wedded to a single vendor, right? The switching costs are, the ability to switch is available, while switching costs might be high in some cases.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
But in the past, in perpetual software, you never had that.
That's a different times
completely different times altogether. And so I think you do have a degree of freedom that comes with SaaS and that comes with being in public cloud, multi-tenant applications. But again, I've always strived to kind of come up with answers that solve deep customer problems. Right. And we believe a big problem that our customers face is being able to orchestrate these digital customer journeys. And by the way, single best-of-breed point solutions means you're going to spend more time trying to drive integration, and your total cost of ownership is going to go up.
The points of connect, the points of support, everything's going to pile up. But there are also there's a section of customers of Adobe which does feel that Adobe does cost an arm and a leg sometimes, and sometimes more as well. Now, let's talk about the fact that startups are the front runners of the CX agenda, but they're also the ones that are probably bootstrapping or sort of have a very shoestring budget. So from an affordability point of view, and for that section of customers, how are we going to solve that problem of affordability?
And I would say we compete with the best of players out there, right? We're not kind of, as you described it, expensive. Right?
Well, that's not what I say, it's the customers saying that.
Well, we'll agree to disagree, right? As you see with the entire Experience Cloud and with Marketo and Magento, we serve the entire landscape of brands, right? From the smallest of brands to the largest of enterprises. We've got applications in the enterprise, the mid-market, the SMB space. I don't think price has been a reason why brands haven't picked Adobe.
Sure, I understand.
Right?
I understand.
And we strive to kind of be the right answer for customers, regardless of their size.
Don't take it personally. I was just being the cynical analyst.
I know, it's fine. It's fine.
So tell me, from now to 2020 end, what marketing problems do you believe technology overall, and more specifically, Adobe's out there to solve?
Yeah, I think this challenge of orchestrating experiences across channels at scale. I think Adobe's out there to help our customers solve. I think the challenge of attribution and being able to understand which decisions are driving what kind of outcomes is a problem Adobe's there to solve. And infusing AI and ML inside every product that we have and inside every capabilities that marketers are looking for, I think is a problem Adobe is here to solve and help them solve. So lots of exciting innovation coming in the next 18 months. At Summit 3 weeks ago, we announced the availability of Adobe Experience Platform
Right.
and some of the things that were coming out there. We announced AEM 6.5 and lots of innovations in components and headless content.
Yep.
We announced the integration of Magento and Marketo. So our innovation agenda is full.
Yeah, I understand.
So lots of exciting things coming out.
Suresh, I'd love to talk more, but in interest of time, I have to kill the joy here. Sorry about that, but thank you so much for your time. For Greyhound TV, I really appreciate it. You were a great sport. Thank you very much, Suresh. Thank you to your viewers for watching. If you have any hard questions for Suresh, direct it towards me, and I'll hit him up. Thank you very much once again.